Hi, welcome to Eric's Movie Corner. I'm Eric. I'm here to talk about movies. Let's do it. Today, I'm going to be talking about the 1982 classic Poltergeist. This movie was directed by Tobe Hooper, at least if you look at the credits. I'll get into that a little bit later. It also starred Craig T. Nelson, Jo Beth Williams, Heather O'Rourke, and Zelda Rubinstein. This movie has so much lore surrounding it. It's really kind of amazing. If you want to dive deep into this, there's a series on the Shudder streaming service called Cursed Films. About films that supposedly have a curse around them, and this is one of them. If you are a horror fan and you don't have the Shudder streaming service, I would highly recommend it. It is dedicated to horror. It's only $7 a month, and they have exclusive content that you can only find on there, as well as a selection of other movies that rotate pretty regularly. So you can get a free trial, so I would highly recommend checking it out if you haven't already. Hey, and if anybody from Shudder is watching, you got that one for free. If you want to sponsor this channel, have your people call my people. So anyway, Poltergeist is considered to be a cursed film because there are a lot of things that happen around this movie that seem to be really bad. For one, Dominique Dunne, the actress who plays the older sister in this movie, was unfortunately strangled by her ex-boyfriend about 6 months after it was released. She went into a coma and was pronounced brain dead 5 days later. And unfortunately, they just had to disconnect her from life support, and that was the end of her life. Also, Heather O'Rourke, the young actress who played the blonde girl in the movie, was misdiagnosed with Crohn's disease, I think it was. And during the filming of Poltergeist 3, got a bowel obstruction, which ultimately led to her death. She suffered from septic shock, and her heart stopped beating, and they actually got her back once, but then second time her heart stopped beating, she was gone at the young age of 11 years old, which is extremely unfortunate. Some people think that there's a curse on this movie because in one scene there are a bunch of skeletons, and as it turns out, they are actual human skeletons rather than fake ones. It seems that it's actually cheaper to buy human skeletons than to manufacture fake ones that look real. So they used real ones, and a lot of people think that that's the reason there's a curse on this movie. However, if you watch that Cursed Films episode I was referring to earlier, I forget who the gentleman is that said this, but he said somebody in that says something along the lines of saying there's a curse on this movie is really just inconsiderate and rude and detracts from the tragedy of Dominique Dunne's death, that she was murdered by her ex-boyfriend who had a history of violence and pled down to manslaughter and only served like 5.5 months in prison for her death. And I agree with him on that. That's not the way things should work. It's an imperfect world, what can I say? A couple other trivia points on this movie is that Zelda Rubinstein, who plays a medium in this movie, was also a practicing medium at the time in real life. So that's kind of an interesting little tidbit there. Basic setup of this movie is that there's a family that figures out that their house is haunted by, guess what? A poltergeist. Yeah, didn't see that one coming. Anywho, one of the reasons this movie is so great is that the first part of the movie is set up to be, you're just getting to know the family. There's a mom and a dad and a son and 2 daughters, and they're just like an all-American family. And the movie takes the time to let you get to know them and let you care about them, so that there's stakes later on in the movie when stuff starts to go south. Now, there's a lot of debate about who actually directed this movie. Tobe Hooper gets the credit of directing the movie. However, a lot of people think that Steven Spielberg was actually directing the movie. He had signed a contract. He was getting ready to do E.T. And wasn't allowed to do anything while E.T. was being produced. However, the filming got pushed back for E.T., so he ended up on the set of Poltergeist every day. And he was quoted at one point as saying that people would come up and ask questions, and Tobe Hooper wasn't a very decisive guy, so if he didn't answer fast enough, Steven would just give the answer and Tobe would nod. So, yeah, people think this is actually directed by Steven Spielberg. Steven Spielberg later apologized for those comments and said that Tobe Hooper's contributions to the movie were invaluable. However, if you've watched a bunch of Steven Spielberg films, Poltergeist feels like a Steven Spielberg film. From the family dynamic to some of the score choices and some of the interactions, it really does feel like a Steven Spielberg work. So even if he wasn't directly, I was going to say directly directing, that's silly. Even if he wasn't actually directing the movie as a producer, his influence is heavy on this movie, and it shows. So, other than knowing there's a family being haunted by a poltergeist, that's pretty much the gist of the whole movie. So, at this point, I'm going to throw up the spoiler flag and get into the details of the movie and go through a couple clips with you. So, if you haven't seen this movie yet, I would highly recommend it. It's a classic. It is, well, I don't have any statistical proofs on this. There's not like a American Bureau of Clown Fear. But anecdotally, I know a bunch of people who attribute this movie for their fear of clowns. So it's definitely had an influence. So, spoiler flag is up, and we're going to dive deep into Poltergeist right now. All right, so one of the first scenes that we get here, where the poltergeist is starting to influence things, and the family's starting to notice, is this scene in the kitchen with the chairs. If you look here, the mom's noticing that there's something off with the chairs around the kitchen table. They're further away than they should be. So she's a little puzzled by this, then her daughter sneaks up on her and startles her. And she asks her daughter if she did it, and she says no. So this scene right here is interesting in that this effect you're going to see coming up, they actually pre-built the statue of chairs, and then when the camera pans here, they had a bunch of crew members run in with it, set it on the table, and then run back out with the chairs that are sitting there now. So right now that's happening. She's getting stuff out of the sink. Come back, and bam! All those chairs are stacked up on the table right there. I think it's extremely effective and probably a really cheap practical effect to pull off at the time. So that's pretty awesome right there. The next scene I'm going to show you is just one of the most quotable lines out of any movie ever. It's when the poltergeist comes out of the television into the house. So you see here, it's late at night. The daughter has gotten out of bed to look at the static on the TV. Hey kids, here's a trivia fact for you. You may not know this if you're one of the younger viewers, but there was a point in time where television would stop. Can you believe it? Before everybody had cable and satellite and internet and all of that, all the television was broadcast over the air, and you had to have rabbit ears to get the television signal. And at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, I forget exactly when it was, they would play the national anthem, and then there would be static until 6 a.m. when the news came on. So that's kind of interesting if you never experienced it. Yeah, television used to stop. How does that blow your mind? So anyway, the daughter has gotten up here in the middle of the night, and she has been staring at the static and hearing voices for a while. So right here, it's starting to happen again. So she's paying attention to the television, and something starts to happen. Yeah, right here. Everybody's asleep but her. And you get little sparklies here on the TV. That strobe effect is kind of disconcerting. Woo! Yeah, there's a hand. And these effects don't hold up that great. I mean, clearly, it's drawn in. It doesn't hold up. It hasn't aged well, but still. Here, the spirit's coming out of the television into the house. The house starts shaking. And then we get the famous line from Heather O'Rourke right here. They're here. Other interesting scenes in this movie, there's a scene where they call in some supernatural investigators to check out the house because of the issues they're having with the poltergeist. And this guy is talking about how proud he is of having caught a matchbox car moving 7 feet across a room over 7 hours. He's very proud of this, and I love the look that the dad gives him right before he opens the door here.
The duration of the event was 7 hours.
7 hours for what?
For the vehicle to complete the distance. Of course, this would never register on the naked eye, but I have it recorded on time-lapse camera.
He's just like, yeah, that's real impressive. Yeah, check this out. Yeah, that's those things are moving a little quicker than 1 foot an hour, aren't they? Compass play the record. I don't think that would actually work, but yeah, she's shook. The teacup was great. After that, they have the medium played by Zelda Rubinstein come in to check out the house, and eventually figured out that there's a portal and that they need to go. Actually, this is something I forgot to mention. The daughter actually gets sucked into the portal and is inside the house, and they can hear her from the television. So they figure out they have to go in after her. And this scene right here just cracks me up. Because they're throwing a rope in there, and they're going to go in after her, and the medium is acting like she's the one that's going to grab the rope and go in, and the mother protests, and the speed with which the medium acquiesces just amuses me. Yeah, you're right, you go. That just kind of cracks me up. After they go in and get the daughter back, the entity is still not happy. There are a bunch of things that happen, but this one right here is when the portal opens back up in the children's room, and the mother's trying to go in to get to them, and she's blocked by what's referred to as the beast. Interesting tidbit on this is that the sound, the roar used for the beast, is actually the MGM lion roar that you have at the logo in the beginning of the movie. So here it comes. Kids are trying to get out, mom's trying to get in, and the beast pops up. It says no. And then mom says, and I think Jo Beth Williams does a great job of being a freaked out mother. After that happens, she kind of gets kicked down the stairways and is going back outside to see how she can get back in. And this is the scene right here. You're going to see it. She ends up falling into their pool that's being dug. And as she falls down in here, all the skeletons pop up, and tell me if you think these look real, because supposedly these are actual human skeletons that they're using right here. And she's trying to get out, and coffins popping up. And man, this would suck to try and get out of a muddy, grated swimming pool. Yeah, that's not a great situation. So she's trying to crawl out, and she falls back in, and there's more skeletons. So this is the scene where they supposedly use real human skeletons, and people think that's why this film is cursed. Yeah, that's a bunch of skeletons. Eventually, she gets out of the pool and gets back into the house, and she's trying to get back to her children. And this effect, she's running back into the house and going up, and this effect right here is still holds up pretty well when she's trying to get down the hall. Nope. It's longer than it used to be. That's pretty trippy right there. I love it. And then she starts running in the hallway, still getting longer, and eventually she catches up and starts to go real time. So that's pretty cool right there. I love that effect. And then this effect here is at the very end of the movie. This station wagon you see driving away here is the family escaping. And this was actually a model they made of the house that was about 4 feet wide. And they had it sitting on, this is filmed from above, they have it sitting on top of an industrial vacuum with wires attached to it at certain points. And then they actually shot it a couple times with shotguns from either side to get the collapse going. And then the wires just pulled it in on itself, which gives this great visual effect here of the house imploding. And then they added all the shiny spectacle after that on the film. I think this particular effect holds up really well, even 40 years later. Pretty cool stuff right there. And then at the end of the movie, after having had their daughter sucked into a television and getting her back and having their house implode, the family is checked into the Holiday Inn here. And I just think this is one of the best punchlines ever because nobody says a word. But this is what happens when they get into the hotel here. They go into the room. Close the blinds. Dad's just checking around, seeing everything's okay. Goes in. And a couple seconds later. No TV. Thank you very much. I can stay out here. Good night. That just cracks me up. I think it's a great punchline to the movie. That is Poltergeist. Is a classic. I actually came to the movie late. I didn't see it in the 80s when it came out. By the time I had seen it, I'd actually seen Craig T. Nelson in the series Coach. So I was surprised when I started watching this movie. I was like, hey, it's Coach! So yeah. But I enjoyed this movie, and it is a classic. And I hope you enjoyed listening to me talk about it today. If you did, I would appreciate it if you give the video a like below. And if you want to see more of what I do, hit the subscribe button and the notification button so you know when I've posted something new. Thanks for stopping by Eric's Movie Corner. I'll see you next time.